It's all you, bruh.
So I did my presentation on genetically modified organisms, also known as GMOs. Thanks. So what I'll go over in this presentation is some history, some techniques for performing the actual modification, some uses of it, future applications, and the controversy surrounding GMOs. So first off, some history. In 1973, Herbert Boyer and Stanley Cohen create the first GMO by inserting a antibacterial, or a antibiotic, resistance into a bacteria cell. And in 1978, Genentech creates a bacteria that can produce insulin. And obviously this is good for treating diabetes, because the old way of treating or getting insulin was through squeezing pig pancreases. And it took about 2 tons, or a ton of pig pancreases to get 8 ounces of purified insulin. And then in 1987, the gene gun is invented, which is biolistics, which I'll talk about later. And in 2000, golden rice is created, which I will also talk about later. So, some techniques. Selective breeding isn't technically a form of genetic modification, but it is a way of getting genes to appear that are good and that you want. And biolistics, which I mentioned before, is using the gene gun to directly shoot metal particles attached with the DNA into the cells. And vectors is using like a virus to directly insert the gene into the organism's DNA. Microinjection is sort of like vectors, just you're physically doing it yourself instead of the virus. And then electroporation and heat shock are, you put the bacteria under stress, and then, you guys good?
Yeah, it's on the walks.
Okay.
Let's go, let's go.
Did you guys, I'm just gonna keep going.
Just keep going.
But,
Just started anyway.
Electroporation is putting the cell under stress so it opens up pores in its cell membrane to be able to take in plasmids, which are little sections of DNA. And some uses of this, the most common use is a pesticide resistance for things like crops. So you can spray pesticides on your fields to kill weeds and other insects. It can be used to reduce the spread of disease. So right now with the Zika virus, they are trying to genetically modify the mosquito that spreads it to be infertile, so it can't actually reproduce. And it is used to increase nutritional value, which is the golden rice. Since a lot of countries, developing countries, grow rice as a food source and as a economic source of money, they have a lot of nutritional deficiencies. So golden rice has a higher level of vitamin A, which will help, reduce those nutritional deficiencies. And it also can be used to increase food output. In this bottom picture, this is a genetically modified salmon. These 2 salmon are both the same age, but obviously the one is double to triple the size of it. Gene therapy, which is a form of therapy to treat genetic diseases. So like Parkinson's, you can actually turn it off using antisense therapy, which is, I'm not going to go too in-depth in it because it's fairly in-depth, but basically they're turning a gene off so the Parkinson's doesn't show through. And it can also be used for research, like genetically modifying mice to develop a certain type of disease. So some future applications of it would be designer babies, which are babies that you can basically create to be however you want them. You can have the whichever eye color you want, hair color, you can make them bigger, stronger, basically whatever you want. Food sustainability, so by the year 2040 there will probably be about 9 billion people in this world. So obviously we need to make better use of our land for food production. And it can also be used for the mass production of drugs or vaccines, like I was talking about with the insulin production and the bacteria. And bioremediation. Bioremediation is using biological organisms to clean up the environment. So say there's an oil spill out in the Gulf again, I guess. You release bacteria there that would eat and degrade down the spilled oil. So the controversy surrounding GMOs, the big one is playing God. People don't think you should mess with the genome because it's that way for a reason. God made it that way, why are you going to play with it? Another threat is superorganisms like superweeds. Superweeds are weeds that are resistant to most types of herbicides, which kill weeds. And that can be bad, obviously, because if your field gets infected with a superweed, there goes all your crops for the year. Bioweapons. So this one's a little less important because most bioweapons aren't actually very effective in what they do. But you could theoretically genetically modify a virus to be, I guess, a super killer. Another thing is animal cruelty, going back to genetically modifying mice to develop certain diseases. Animal rights activists don't like that. And the golden rice issue. So when we were making the golden rice, we intended on giving it to poorer countries to increase their food and to reduce nutritional deficiencies. However, these undereducated countries actually believed the golden rice was harming them in some way, and it was actually a way for us to sort of kill them off, I guess, is how they saw it. But yeah, they didn't like that. But that is all I have for you. Any questions?
No questions? Are you kidding me? Okay, so the whole Parkinson thing, I came at the end and you go there. So they're using them to possibly treat Parkinson's? Or
Yes.
that's, no, I'm assuming it's controversial?
Yeah,
I mean, because
fairly.
Parkinson's is a pretty prevalent disease, right? So, like Michael J. Fox, you know who that is? Do you guys know who that is?
Yeah.
Michael J. Fox, he has Parkinson's, and I know that they're, always searching for a cure. But if we could, I mean, are they testing this? Is it in the beginning stages? I mean, because that's
It's
pretty
in
significant.
like clinical trials, yeah.
And I'm assuming the government will most likely be blocking this currently?
I'm not sure if the government's going to try and block it, but maybe, yes.
Just like anything?
I'm guessing they do that to like observe how the disease works,
Right,
how it operates, because it's hard to like watch people that have the disease. Like you
right,
usually die right away.
yeah.
But I have a question about the golden rice issue. Like, how they think that we're trying to kill them off?
They're undereducated. They don't understand that what we're trying to do is actually to help them. They just think we're using them as like mice to test adverse effects of the rice.
So there aren't any negatives for golden rice? Like if you were
Are
None
there
that
any,
are
like, side
currently known,
effects?
no.
That's what I'm kind of thinking
Yeah.
on Ben's line, is that these people, like, when you introduce, you know how you can't have certain fish in certain waters, you know what I mean, because it'll create an invasive
Right.
species?
I think
that's
they
maybe
gotta
where
like
they're-
adapt with the vitamin deficiency. When they got the vitamins back from the golden rice, they might have, I don't know, gotten sick or something. Should I stop this?
No, I think America's question.
Pretty much was asked like 3 times.
What, the golden rice?
Well, I was gonna ask like, how would we just like give them the rice, or would they like trade back like the same pound per pound rice that we give them?
We would just be giving it to them. Like we would give them the amount they need to start growing it.
We as in America, right?
Yeah, as in United States.
So
Sorry.
like, once we got it to their country, how would they know like it was grown correctly? Like, would we give it to their government and then we watch them grow it, or would they just give it to the farmers and?
Well, you can just grow it like regular rice.
So we
It's
would
just
grow it,
a
produce
genetically
it, and give
modified
it.
strain of it.
We grow it,
How do you grow
And then
regular
sort of-
rice?
How do you grow rice?
You
I'm not
plant
sure.
it.
I'm gonna be honest with
rice fields, a lot of water.
you. Rice fields and a lot of water, I know that.
I don't know what the plants.
So you just like.
It's a
submerge it in
grain. It's the same
water.
thing as
It
like granola.
actually, like Southeast Asia, because they have such, kind of like a cranberry marsh, you know you know what a cranberry marsh
I'm
is?
just gonna Google it. Yeah, I've actually been to a cranberry marsh.
Yes.
So. How will we stop this? Like,
Just
it
push
just
the red button.